Life Reflection, Chapter 10, High School, Part 1. So I suspect that there's going to be two parts to this since high school itself is about 4 years, usually, and it was 4 years for me. So I went to a school called Chino Hills High School for all 4 years, and overall for me, I feel like I enjoyed high school a lot. And I think high school played kind of a significant role in terms of just the people I met, primarily because I keep in contact with so many of my friends that I made through high school today. So it's one of the things that have played a really important part in my social life, in my adult life. So I do think high school is a pretty important chapter. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Entering high school, I was a part of drumline, same as when I was in 8th grade. And drumline was actually a really, really big thing in Chino Hills High School. That school was known for being really, really good for drumline. It was actually like first place in some of the world competitions the years after I kind of quit. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But when I was in it, we got, I think it was like second place or something like that. And it was a really, really fun time. So that was a big part of my freshman year, I would say. Another thing that I want to note for freshman year is that a lot of my friends that I made in middle school did not go to the high school that I went to. Just like, I think 2 or 3, I'd say. So when I entered high school, it was sort of like a new set of friends, although I would sometimes talk to my middle school friends from 8th grade. And I think the easiest friends to make were the ones that were in drumline initially. Just because we spent so much time, like even before school happened, we had like stuff we needed to do, practices after school all the time. So yeah, 9th grade was definitely very much consumed by that, I'd say. We can get into it now. So for drumline during 8th grade, I don't think I mentioned too much of it, but I was snare in drumline for 8th grade, and then I moved over to marimba because I knew how to play piano. And based on my experience, I guess I was better suited for that since a lot of the other people didn't really know how to play piano. Same went for when I entered in 9th grade. So I was vibraphone and then also marimba in my freshman year, depending on like which stage of drumline it was. And I remember the practices being pretty fun. I remember getting sunburnt sometimes because we just practiced out in the sun for very long periods of time. And it was also cool because we got to hang out with like all different grades. Like there were seniors, juniors, and sophomores and freshmen all alike in drumline, which I thought was a good experience to have when, you just entered high school. But interestingly, I'd say a lot of my friends that I made through drumline, I don't really talk to now. But overall, it was a really good experience because we did a lot of competitions, went to Ohio for one of the world competitions. I don't really think it was a world competition. I think it was just like a national competition, like just the United States. And I remember we had like this big pillow fight at the room that was really fun. I remember I was like pretending to be like Jackie Chan, and like back then I would watch a lot of his movies, and he would always be that guy that was very, very like durable and would take a lot of hits and get back up and stuff. So I would try to channel that energy while we were playing some pillow fight stuff, despite the fact that it actually hurt. Pillow fights should not hurt. I definitely was doing something wrong, or my friends were, but it was just the 4 of us. It was like probably one of the first few times I've ever stayed in a hotel with just friends. But we got like first place it was sort of like, we got first place a lot actually before the world competition, but for the world competition or national competition, there was like, I don't know why they did this, but there was like a predicted placement and then a final placement. You had to do 2 shows. It was like a preliminary show and then the final show. You're basically doing the same show. But for the preliminary one, we got predicted to be first place. So we got to stand next to a group called Pulse Percussion. And we already had ties to Pulse Percussion because one of the members of Pulse Percussion was somebody that taught us basically in pit. And pit is like, the other instruments that aren't in part of battery. Battery is like snare drum, bass drum, and the tenors. And they're like moving around during the show. And then the pit, like they stay still. And they're like the marimba, xylophone, vibraphones, and the kit drum, as well as like a whole bunch of other things on the rack. So yeah, it was really fun being like part of the group that like won all the time, I guess. Despite the fact that like I feel like we didn't do much. I mean, we practiced all the time, but we just like followed what the instructors said. I feel like the instructors definitely had more of like a stake in it. But back to Pulse Percussion, I thought it was really cool. I really, really loved Pulse Percussion's show that year. It had something to do with, I think, like marriage, and just the melody was great, basically. So I kind of feel like looking it up at some point. But yeah, very, very good percussion group. And they were actually on America's Best Dance Crew at one point as well. Like they went on after I met them. So that was a really, really cool thing to see. But music is a big part of my life, and it was a really, really fun experience getting to have, like, I'm getting to meet so many, like, cool people that were into music, even though, you know, they were into percussion, which these days I hardly do too much with. I mostly just play piano these days. But I do have interest in, like, perhaps getting back into some percussive instruments and just, like, trying them out. I have a lot of fond memories, basically, with drumline overall. Yeah, same with in 8th grade. I didn't mention it much, but like the instructors told me like, you know, oh, you're going to Chino Hills, you're going to a really, really great school. You know, I see you being like a really good like marimba player there or something like that. And I felt bad because this was kind of a part of my history that I didn't enjoy at all. So during the transition between freshman year and sophomore year, we had sort of like council sessions with like the band teacher and also the instructors for drumline, and they were just asking us how we felt, like, oh, you know, about next year and stuff. And there was like talk across the board with a lot of members who were not seniors who were planning on quitting drumline. So it was like an unprecedented amount of people who just felt like they wanted to quit. I guess it was because like it just took up a lot of time. Like, honestly, it took up a lot of time. Like, we basically couldn't do much of anything else other than drumline in terms of extracurricular stuff. And for me personally, I had interest in like breakdance. I had interest in like trying other clubs and just like meeting other people as well. It just felt like my whole life in freshman year was based around drumline, I would say. And I do remember this one time where I was kind of frustrated because of a practice and a show. I was saying like, I was telling my friend, if this makes me fail my piano exam tomorrow, like I'm totally gonna quit. Luckily, I didn't fail my piano exam. It was like one of the ABRSM exams that I took. I forgot which level, but the highest I went to was AB level 7 while I was still in school. I eventually self-studied to do level 8, which is the final level, after college finished. But I don't remember which one I did during 9th grade. But I do know that my piano teacher stopped teaching me, I think the summer of 9th grade, so summer after 9th grade. So it must mean that I took the 7th level exam during my freshman year for ABRSM for practical, like playing. But that's sort of how I felt. I was frustrated. I was like, this is taking up all my time. Like my high school life is basically going to be this if I continue. So I also felt that pressure and sort of like feeling that that everyone else had who wanted to quit. And I was like, yeah, I'm really considering quitting as well. So the council sessions, they were kind of like really pressuring. They made it seem like, oh yeah, you know, it's a given. You're going to go to the next year and you're going to improve and you're going to be one of the marimbas and so on and stuff like that. And it didn't feel like a choice. I was telling them how I wasn't really feeling it. And they were like, you know, just try it. And then what happened was during the summer when we had practice sessions, you know, I had a vacation with my family, extended family and my mom and sister. And after we came back, it was like, I just didn't feel like going to summer practices. I felt like I just wanted to be a kid and do my own thing, and I wanted to try breakdancing the next year as well and everything, like the club, because they were awesome. I loved seeing them at the rally. I think that was a very pivotal moment as well. Like there was a rally during school. A rally is basically, you know, all the classes get together during like a certain time and there's like shows and people play games together. It's fun. And that was the first time I think, and that was the first time the B-Boy Club performed, the breakdance club performed, and it was just like really, really awesome. Like people were doing hand hops, people were doing crazy moves like flips and all that stuff. And I was like, this is something I want to try. So that's right about the time when I got into it. It was like 10th grade when I actually felt like I had time, and when I started practicing, especially like a lot of handstands and stuff. But I'm kind of going all over the place. Let's finish off band real quick, or drumline. So after that summer happened, the conclusion is I basically didn't go back, and they called me and I was like, I really don't feel like I want to do this. Like, this is not what I want. And the drumline teacher instructor for Pitt, talked to me on the phone. At first it was the other instructor. I forgot his full name, to be honest, but he was a really, really cool instructor. And he was the guy from Pulse Percussion. And I felt like, I didn't want to let him down. Like he was someone who actually talked to me more. He was someone who actually felt like more of a friend. And I felt really bad. Like, if there was a reason to stay, I would have done it for him, but like, it just wasn't enough, like I didn't want to suffer just for someone else for 3 more years, So in the end, I talked to him about it. I was like, thank you so much for being such a good instructor and everything. And then I talked to the main instructor, and he was just like so mean to me. He was like ridiculously mean to a kid, I was still 13 years old at the time. I think 13 or 14, but he was just like, it's ridiculous. You need to man up. You need to like have said these things. And I was like, I did say it. I literally told him like I did say it. And he's like, well, you have to like say it again in person and all that stuff. And he was just saying how like, yeah, because of this, we're not friends anymore. And I'm like, dude, we were never friends. Like, this guy, I remember during a performance in freshman year, like one of the judges called out a mistake that a vibraphone made, and he automatically, I don't know why, he just assumed it was me, but like it was someone else. Like, they eventually found out who it was because she admitted it. It was, yeah. And it just was like not a great experience to get falsely called out, basically. And to me, he never really felt like he cared about me. He never actually tried that much, honestly, to form any sort of connection. He just cared about the competition. And yeah, but it's unfortunate. Like, I think given under like different circumstances, like if I wasn't as quiet as I was in 9th grade, and if I was who I was now, I guess, I think I could have been good friends with the instructor, because he seemed like a fine guy overall. Of course, he's going to get mad if like a person who was supposed to be a marimba, and if you don't know anything about Pitt, like marimba is one of the more sort of like upper level instruments. Like, they're pretty important to the Pitt. So they kind of had to like replace me with someone else who was like just brand new, basically. So I definitely made it harder for them. So I understand that part. And I also like brought in a friend who is a good friend now into the Pit. So that was another thing. He was like, you even brought a friend? Like, why are you quitting? And I was like, the reason why I wanted to bring a friend was to make the suffering less. But in the end, I was just like, I just can't. But yeah, that was a big part of my freshman year for sure. And I'm trying to remember other like notable things about freshman year in particular. Because I was in band, I wasn't in PE, since at least in that high school, it counted as half a year of PE, and you needed 2 years of PE. So after quitting, I had to do like a summer school thing for PE, because I did PE in sophomore year, which was really fun. And yeah, I had to make it up, basically. That summer PE was a very, very interesting one, actually. It was like the year after sophomore year. And I think it was the first time I ever saw someone smoke weed in front of me. Like, my friend was just like, we were playing chess during one of the breaks. Like, I think it was a lunch break or something. And we were playing chess on his phone. And, I beat him. And then he was like, oh, you want to move into you want to play in my car? And I was like, sure, why not? So we were playing again. And then I beat him again. And all of a sudden, he's just like, yeah, he just takes out this thing and starts smoking. And I'm just like, what is happening right now in my head? But the second that happens, I'm like, okay, hey man, I'm gonna just step out real quick. I have like some wheezing issues, And he's like, okay. And then I step out of the car. I'm like, I wait a little bit for him because we're in the parking lot, and I guess we were just gonna walk back together. But that was a very, very strange experience for me the first time. But on the topic of PE, just to talk about it, I had a lot of fun during PE. Again, I mentioned that in seventh grade and eighth grade. Overall, like just good experiences. I think any sort of like physical activity involved with like a group of people, to me, is always a fun time. I think a lot of my events during my birthdays sort of take after that. The events that I make are always like related to some form of like running, like in tag, and some thinking and some dexterity, like hand-eye coordinations, frisbee throwing, ball throwing, stuff like that. But PE definitely played a big role in why I enjoy those things. And I met a lot of really, really good friends that I still talk to today through PE, not necessarily just through PE, it was through other classes as well, but it was a time to interact with those friends in a way that you normally don't, you know? Like personally, I think it was kind of like more fun than band oftentimes and than drumline. But just to go back to freshman year to finish it off, I'd say a lot of my time outside of drumline that was spent was with my high school girlfriend, the one where, you know, we got together, we did not stay together, and then we eventually got back together because she wanted revenge on me. And at a certain point, we ended up staying together and trying to make it work. So for the first year, we definitely spent a good amount of time together. And we were both in like the Japanese class because the languages that you could learn in that school was like French, Chinese, Spanish, and Japanese, I believe. So we chose Japanese, and we would hang out in the Japanese classroom during lunch sometimes. And overall, like, it was just fun in that classroom being together. Sometimes the teacher, the sensei would I guess yell at us, and not too much. It was more so just like twice, I remember, where she was just sitting next to me and I guess making a little bit too much noise. So the teacher was like, "You two, stop messing around, blah, blah, blah." And yeah, it was kind of scary a little bit. But I also think it was like, thanks to that class is how we actually met. So if it weren't for that class, I don't think we would have gotten together. But I do remember, like, this is kind of very embarrassing for me personally. And a part of me doesn't want to mention it, but I do remember that she was very like open in terms of like PDA, public displays of affection. So oftentimes, like sometimes when she would like kiss me or something like that, it would be for a long time. And one of the teachers was like noticing, and she was just like, "You two, just stop it. Like, why are you guys doing that?" Stuff like that. And I was thinking about it now. I'm just like, honestly, why the hell was I doing that? Like, that's so stupid. Like, I guess for me, it was like the first time experiencing something like that. And I was just like a little bit too okay, I suppose. Like, if older me could go to younger me, I would definitely slap him and try to put some sense into him, because I personally do not enjoy like PDA very much. Oh yeah, and there was this random time, like kind of close to the beginning of school, I think. There was this girl who randomly held my hand while we were eating lunch, and I had no idea why, and I was pretty uncomfortable with it. But one of my friends saw and just like assumed that we liked each other, and I was just like, what's happening? It was a really, really weird thing, I feel. A really weird memory, an uncomfortable memory. But I think she kind of understood that I did not like her, you know, because afterwards I just did not like, I think I said something. I was just like, sorry, I feel like we're just friends, you know? And I think that's pretty much it in terms of like more notable memories from freshman year in particular. From here, let's just get into all the other years, because honestly, they were kind of like a bit of a blend. I remember 10th grade being a really, really, like, it was more fun. Like, I don't know why this is a big memory, I feel like, because it was very embarrassing. But my 10th grade teacher, 10th grade English teacher, she was a really, really cool teacher, very down to earth, like on the younger side. I think at a certain point she was like pregnant, maybe in my senior year. So she would be very open and talk about all sorts of things. And I thought that was fun. And she's actually like the first teacher that noticed that for my hair in particular, I guess during high school, I just did not know which side to put it, like towards the left or the right. And she noticed that like I did that. And that's why I had crazy hair. And she said it out loud, like in a very, very spectacularly detailed way, like that nobody else has ever noticed. So I was like, wow, that teacher is very, very perceptive. And then at a certain time, maybe in the middle of sophomore year, like she noticed something on me, and she was just like, oh, like, is that a hickey? And then she confirms that it is and says that I should put something on it or something like that. I don't know, like to make a heel or something like that. But I had no idea that it was there. I guess I was just that dumb when I was a kid, like in high school. But basically when she pointed it out, like literally the whole class was staring at me, and I felt so embarrassed at that moment. But a lot of people remember it, and they just like think of it as a very, very funny moment. But junior year, I think, was probably one of my favorites, I'd say. Junior year was when I took AP Physics, and physics was my major in college, as well as me minoring in math and computer science. But for physics, I just really, really loved that class because the teacher was really cool. He was very free. He was just like, you know, if you guys get an A on the AP test, then, or a 5 on the AP test, or I think he said pass. So 3 or above, you get an A in the class. So everyone did except for one person. And if everyone had, he said he would have shaved his head. So I guess he didn't need to shave his head because of that. He actually did shave his head at one point, I believe, because I think the next year, like, got full scores. I don't know. I just feel like I remember him shaving his head at some point because of the fact that, like, the year actually got all passing scores for AP Physics. Maybe like somebody told me because I had cousins in the later years. But yeah, really, really cool teacher. And I definitely think he played a big role in me studying physics later on, because he would play all those videos with like Michio Kaku and like other renowned physicists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and everyone. So I just found that stuff so fascinating, so fun. So really, really great class, and everyone there was very smart, and they were all good friends, you know. Like this around junior year was when we started taking a lot of AP classes. So I was in AP US History, AP Physics, AP English, AP Calculus. And this was the first year I was in choir as well. And the choir teacher was really fun. I remember like at a certain point I was playing like a lot of piano, and she was like, she asked me if I wanted to help or anything like that. Or I asked her if I could help, but we never quite followed through with that because she did have someone else helping out for piano. But occasionally I would help out whenever she was absent. I would like play scales for everyone, do the warm-up exercise on the piano. I was the person who helped with piano, I guess, whenever she couldn't play the piano. So that was a fun experience in choir. And I think thanks to that, as well as like there was like a men's ensemble after school as well that I joined. And after that, in senior year, I entered chambers choir, which is like the highest level. But I wasn't that great, even though she was very nice and said that I had a good tenor voice. I feel like back then my singing was very, very much like reliant upon hearing someone else sing and then like just matching the note. But it was a good experience for sure. Chambers for choir, performing at Disneyland, performing at another venue as well. And just the performances at the school also, and at graduation, definitely very fun. So I still had some music involved in what I did like for junior and senior year. But I think I've been talking for quite a bit for this one. There's certainly a lot more to high school and a lot more memories. I will probably get back to the AP stuff. I think that was a pretty important discussion or a part of my high school life as well. So we'll talk about that in the next one.